If you're the owner of a 2015 through 2020 four-wheel drive F-150 and you're looking to level your rig using extremely high-quality components from an industry leader, well then you have to check out Eibach's Pro Truck Lift Stage 2R system that we have on the table with me here today. Now, when installed, this kit will provide F-150 owners roughly 2 to 2.5 inches of additional front end lift and a comfortable fit of a 33 by 12.5 inch tire. Now, this is made possible thanks to the adjustable coilover design here up front, along with matching reservoir rear shocks, all for right around that $1,500 to $1,600 price point. So even though Eibach does refer to this as their Pro 2R lift kit, I would personally call it a leveling kit, as there's no real hardware to physically lift the rear end of your F-150. Just wanted to be clear there and clear up any possible confusion regarding the hardware of this kit. Now, regardless, when talking leveling kits, F-150 owners do have a couple of different options here on the site. The absolute most affordable way is to add what is called a puck style spacer to the top of your factory suspension to get your desired level, and these are no doubt going to be a cost-effective way to achieve more front end height to fit a bigger wheel and tire, but that's pretty much it, as they don't offer any other performance benefits outside of that. And then you have something like this, which is a completely new set of adjustable coilovers for the front, along with the new dampers or reservoir shocks here for the rear. Now, the Pro 2R from Eibach is the company's highest level offering for the F-150 and does come with some of the nicest components available for a kit like this on the site, including those adjustable coilovers that we talked about up front. These are going to be preset for about 2 to 2.5 inches of front end lift. And then of course we can't forget about these baller reservoir rear shocks here with the dust boots. They're going to offer greater heat dissipation thanks to those reservoirs, and basically just be a more consistent damper over just a standard monotube offering that you might find here on the site. Now, not only will the combination of Eibach's legendary springs and dampers contribute to a more controlled ride both on and off road, but it will also make way for a slightly larger tire, as we mentioned earlier. Now, Eibach doesn't give us any exact data here for this particular kit. However, in my experience, leveled F-150s such as this can easily get away with a 33 by 1250 tire without issue, or even bigger perhaps, but that's going to heavily depend on your tire width, offset, and back spacing. So just know for this video, just to be safe, we're going to recommend 33 by 1250 and go from there. Now, as far as construction is concerned, well, for starters, guys, the entire kit has been designed and built right here in the USA using, again, very, very high quality components. Now you're looking at both the front coilovers here along with those rear shocks. Those all are going to utilize a true monotube design with an internal 46mm piston and nitrogen fill. Now, of course, the front coilover is equipped with a set of Eibach's proprietary off-road race springs, which again, we did talk about earlier. We'll mention it again here. Definitely look forward to more control off-road, along with a slightly firmer, AKA sportier ride while on-road, especially when paired up with Eibach's rear dampers. Now, the bodies of these components do utilize an anodized aluminum build, and the entire system has been given a limited lifetime warranty, which is awesome, and I have to say a bit of a rarity in the suspension world, and is just a true testament to Eibach's quality. Now, moving into pricing here, guys, and I think you'll find for the Eibach kit, specifically the 2R on the table with me today, $1,500 to $1,600 ballpark. That's gonna occupy what I like to call kind of the middle to higher end of the price spectrum, between those puck style leveling kits on the absolute bottom end of the pricing spectrum. A lot of times you can get into something like that for about $100 to $200. But then at the top end of that spectrum, you'll find coilover kits from Icon, BDS, Fox, things like that, that'll have to actually eclipse maybe $2,000 and so on. So Eibach kit, the 2R, $1,500 to $1,600. I know it's not exactly the most affordable kit on the site, but I would definitely argue for the quality of the components you are getting here is certainly going to be very, very attractive. Now we want to shift gears and just show you what it takes to get everything installed on your F-150 at home. Site's going to call this a solid 2 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter and about 3 hours to complete from start to finish. But to give you a better idea of what's involved, how it's going to go down at home, check out our detailed walkthrough and tool breakdown.
Tools required for this install include a couple different sized air guns, an impact gun, a hammer, a 15mm ratcheting wrench, a clip remover tool, a swivel adapter, a pair of scissors or diagonal cutters, 18, 19, and 27mm wrenches, a pry bar, 15 and 18mm swivel sockets, 8, 10, 18, 19, and 21mm sockets, and a couple pole jacks.
What's up guys? Today we're installing a lift kit on our F-150, so let's get started. So our first step is to remove our brackets for our brake line and ABS line. We have two 10mm bolts and an 8mm bolt that we'll need to remove. So we have our two 10mm bolts that we'll grab a 10mm socket to remove. And now we can switch to our 8mm socket to remove the bracket for our ABS line. Next, we can grab a clip remover tool and pop out these two clips just to give us some extra slack. Next, we can take a 21mm socket and remove the nut for our tie rod end. Now, sometimes if you push up on the gun, this will pop it out. If not, we can put our nut back on a few threads and hit it with a hammer. Next, we can come underneath our lower control arm. We have an 18mm nut for our sway bar end link and two 18mm nuts for our lower strut studs. So we'll take an 18mm socket and remove all three while we're down here. Next, we can come to our three upper strut nuts. They're 15mm, so I'm gonna take a 15mm ratcheting wrench. We're gonna loosen these up most of the way for now. So now on our strut, we have two press bolts that are going down through the lower control arm. So to get this out as easy as possible, I'm going to be undoing these bolts on our lower control arm pivot points so that we can swing down our lower control arm to get our studs out. Now, since we're installing a lift kit, you're going to need to get in alignment anyway. So what we're gonna do is take a marker and mark down our bolt alignment so that we can get it as close as possible for your drive to the alignment shop. So now we can just take a marker and we're just gonna mark down our alignment here so that we can get that as close as possible. And we're gonna do this on both sides of each bolt. So now we can grab a 21mm socket and 27mm wrench to loosen up our pivot bolts. Now we can remove the two bolts in our lower control arm. drop our control arm down. And then we can get our 2 studs for our strut out. We'll go back up top and remove our 3 nuts to remove our strut. So now we'll go back up top and fully remove those 3 nuts. And then we can slide our strut out of place. And now we can repeat that process on the other side. Now moving on to the rear, we're gonna have to remove our rear shocks. Our bottom shock mount's held in with a 15mm bolt and an 18mm nut. Our top shock mount is held in with a 15mm bolt, and we have a nut that's welded to a tab, so we don't need a wrench for that side. However, on the passenger side, that top mount is gonna be a 15mm bolt and 18mm nut. I've got my axle supported with pole jacks so that we can remove our shocks. So we'll start on our lower mount with that 15mm socket and 18mm wrench. And now we'll get the top. We'll just take that 15mm socket to get our bolt out. And then we can do that same thing on the other side. So now we're ready to install our new strut. So we'll get this up into place and then thread our 3 nuts onto the top of our studs. Next, we can install our new bolts from the top down through our strut and into our lower control arm. And then we'll grab our washer and nut and thread that onto the bottom of our stud. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side. Next, we can raise our lower control arm back up into place. I've got a pole jack on each side, so we can raise this up. And then we can grab our bolts and slide these through. We'll get our nut on the other side. And we'll do that same thing on the other side. Now we're ready to tighten down our 2 bolts. So the first thing I'm going to do is come to the nut side. We're going to line up the alignment mark that we made. You might have to use a pry bar to pry forward or back to get it to line up. But once we have that in place, I'll get a 27mm wrench and a 21mm socket and tighten that down. And then we'll do that same thing on the other side. Next, we can tighten down our 2 lower strut bolts. We'll use a 19mm socket on the nut side and a 19mm wrench on our bolt side. Next, we can go back up top and tighten down our 3 nuts. So we can take a 15mm ratcheting wrench to do so. Next, we can reinstall our tie rod end. And thread on our 21mm nut. And now we can take a 21mm socket to tighten down our nut. Now next, we can reconnect our clips and reinstall all of our brackets. And then I'll take a 10mm socket to tighten down our first two brackets. And then we'll switch to our 8mm socket for our last one. Now at this point, you can repeat that entire process on the other side. The only thing we have left to do is reinstall our sway bar end link. You want to make sure both sides are put together so that you can lower the end links into the lower control arm at the same time, and then we can get our nuts on and tighten those down. So now I've got my end links lined up on both sides. So we can take a pry bar and pry our end link into the lower control arm and get our nut on and tighten that down. And we'll tighten that down with an 18mm socket. So now we're ready to install our rear shocks. Now these shocks are pretty stiff, so I'm gonna be using a pry bar to get these in. Because of that, I'm gonna be putting the bottom mount in first, and then we'll pry down on the top to get it into our upper mount. So now we can work on prying down on our shock to get it into our upper mount. Now I'm gonna be putting my pry bar through the middle here and pry on this. You don't wanna pry up top on this fitting. And now I'm gonna get my pry bar on top of it here. And now when we have that bolt about halfway through, we can put our nut with the tab on the other side and get that threaded in. And now I'll take a 15mm socket to tighten down our top bolt. And now on the bottom, we can take a 15mm socket and an 18mm wrench to tighten that one down. Now, the last thing we need to do is add our zip tie to our boot here. And then you can take a pair of scissors or diagonal cutters to chop off that excess. And then you can do that same thing on the other side. So that'll wrap up this review and install of the Eibach Pro Truck Coilover Kit Stage 2R for your 2015 to 20 four-wheel drive 2.3 liter, 3.5 liter EcoBoost, 5.0 liter F-150 Super Crew, and excluding the Raptor. Thank you for watching, and for all things F-150, keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.